Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll another 2-3 minutes we can start, huh?
Yes, sir.
Apply, you can start the recording also. We can. Okay. That, sir, can we start?
Yes, sir. We'll start now. Good evening, participants. ACM Chennai, IEEE Madras, and CSI Chennai cordially invite you to a webinar on mobile forensics and cyber crime investigations by Dr. Rizwan Ahmed, ACM Distinguished Speaker, CTO, delaPlex, Independent Consultant for Cyber Security and Digital and Mobile Forensic Investigator. Mobile devices, together with IoT, cloud computing, and big data, have been the booming technological trends in the last decade. Smartphones carry valuable information for many investigations. They provide recent chats, call logs, location data, pictures, etc., which helps the forensic investigator to identify the person and to learn about their recent activities. Dr. Rizwan Ahmed will cover various technical aspects related to mobile forensics, such as what is digital evidence, digital forensics, and mobile forensics. Why digital forensics is important, branches of digital forensics. Why do we do forensic examinations? Mobile forensics history, forensic data on mobile phones, mobile forensics extraction methodologies, mobile device vulnerabilities, detection of malware and spyware, mobile forensics, challenges for InfoSec practitioners, seizing mobile evidence. Dr. Rizwan Ahmed is the Chief Technology Officer at delaPlex. He also works as independent consultant for cybersecurity and digital and mobile forensic investigator for various private, government, and law enforcement agencies in India and abroad. Dr. Rizwan has experience in academia and has been associated with many top institutes from Central India. He has close to 2 decades of professional experience in IT industry as innovative, hands-on technology executive with a proven track record of leading the design, development, and program project management of high technology projects and solutions while continuously improving the process and procedures. He has worked with multiple Fortune 100, 1,000 enterprises, MSMEs, and cutting-edge technology startups in variety of industries such as fintech, retail, healthcare, broadcast, hospitality, edtech, energy, etc. Dr. Rizwan is regularly invited as a speaker at many national and international conferences, events, and panel discussions in India and abroad, and has delivered more than 200 plus talks so far. Dr. Rizwan was awarded PhD in Computer Science and Engineering from Nagpur University on the topic of analysis and design of efficient generalized forensics framework for mobile devices. He has published over 50 technical research papers in peer-reviewed international national journals, conferences in the field of mobile forensics, digital forensics, network security, e-learning and m-learning, genetic algorithms and genetic programming and software engineering and project management. Dr. Rizwan is a recipient of multiple global awards, including IT Technology Hero Award 2008 by Microsoft, Marcus Who is Who in the World 2016, IT Next Magazine's Next 100 Fortune CIO Award, and so many other things. Over to Dr. Rizwan. Thank you.
Okay, quick mic check. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
So good evening to all the participants. I appreciate all of you joining. And at the outset, I would like to thank ACM Chennai, IEEE CS Madras section, and CSI Chennai for inviting me and delivering this webinar on the topic of mobile forensics and cybercrime investigation. And thanks for that introduction. So, as we heard during the introduction, there is a lot of buzz around cyber crimes, and more specifically, a lot of these crimes are these days being carried out using mobile phones, or maybe a lot of those crimes are being solved using mobile devices. So, how that is happening, that is what we'll try to cover in the session today. So, you might have a lot of questions like why this practice of mobile forensics is important. What does mobile forensics exactly entail? What we should be looking for when we do mobile forensics? More importantly, what is the current state of mobile forensics and where this field is going, so that we understand and prepare ourselves for current and future challenges. And all the people who have interest in this field, in a way they want to become mobile forensics investigators, what kind of tools we should be using if you have interest in this field, so that you become an investigator yourself and you solve these cyber crimes or digital crimes which are happening. And as you all know, we are almost reaching to a point wherein these cyber crimes are going to be costing all of us close to $7 trillion. You can imagine the figure, how big it is. It's bigger than GDPs of many countries, right? So this is something which is very, very worrisome. And that is what we'll try to understand when we go into the further slides. More importantly, before we understand what mobile forensics is or digital forensics is, it's very, very important that we understand what digital evidence is. So as all of you know, whenever a crime happens, if we need to prosecute that person in court of law, it is very, very important that we collect evidence against the culprit and maybe prosecute that person in court of law, and maybe have that person maybe found guilty of committing that crime. Now, what is happening these days is, instead of physical crimes, the digital crimes are increasing. And that's why understanding digital evidence and what digital evidence is very, very important for all of us. So in the simplest form, what digital evidence is anything which is of probative value and that is stored or transmitted in binary form. So everyone who understands computers or maybe all the digital devices, all the information what we have in computers is stored in zeros and ones, and we call it as binary form. So in simplest term, digital evidence is anything which is stored or transmitted on any digital device. And more importantly, that information or data needs to be of some probative value from the perspective of solving a crime. So if you look at maybe some of the examples of digital evidence, you'll find all the different digital devices what we use, they have different variety of digital evidence which is stored on them. So example could be we might have a telecommunication device, or maybe we have a computer, which is a traditional computer storing information. So all these digital devices could be subjected to some kind of attack. And when we are investigating or doing forensics for solving those crimes, we'll try to look for maybe how the hacker has done the intrusion on that system, maybe what was the sequence of event in a way when the person was carrying out that attack and what they did. And that's what we try to do when we try to look at the different digital evidence to maybe recreate the crime, how it happens. So here are some of the examples of digital evidence. It's just maybe a high-level list. There is a huge list if you look at digital evidence. So one of the primary examples and how this got all started was threatening emails. So, this is something which is a primary form of digital crimes which started happening in countries like India and maybe other countries, wherein you'll receive an email, anonymous email, threatening about something which the person knows, and maybe they'll say that okay, we'll try to maybe let everyone know if it is something which you want to hide, right, and things like that. And that's where any email which will come under this category could be called as a digital evidence. Similarly, there could be examples of documents. So if I'm a corporate, if I'm running a company, I might have a lot of confidential information, my IP, right, which is stored on my corporate network. Or maybe personally, if I'm a big celebrity, or maybe a person who is storing certain personal information which everyone should not know. So that could be stored in a variety of documentary format. So example could be, it could be a Word file, a PDF file, and I can go on an Excel file containing a lot of corporate information which is confidential in nature. So if someone is trying to get access of those documents, and maybe they have got those documents, so then we should be able to find out, especially those documents where they should not be, and you're able to find those documents at places where they should not be. So that is another example of digital evidence. More importantly, suicide notes. A lot of you know there was a big celebrity suicide which happened last year. You all noticed, right, what all information was maybe used during the investigation of such high profile celebrity suicide, right? So maybe generally in past people used to write suicide notes which were used to be handwritten, but these days there are many incidences wherein people are writing certain notes on their computers or their mobile phones or maybe via emails. And as investigator, we come across such scenarios wherein we need to find out if that suicide note is genuine, or maybe it is not genuine, or maybe if somebody is trying to make it up and things like that. So that is another example of digital evidence. More importantly, we have a lot of enemy states, which is true for many countries. So again, terrorists use a lot of different techniques to either attack the physical infrastructure, and that is what would include things like bomb making diagrams or anything which is going to be used by them. So whenever we are able to catch hold of such terrorists, we try to look for all the digital devices what they have, including hard drives, mobile phone, right, and try to identify if you're able to find any information which is going to be useful for our country, and maybe we'll find out what their intention is and maybe prevent any catastrophe from happening. I can go on. The list is huge. Malicious softwares, which includes viruses, worms, child pornography, which is banned in most countries, including India. Again, when you do a hacking attempt, you try to connect to a network of a remote computer, so you're able to find out from which IP the connection has happened, and maybe how long the connection has happened, and things like that. So that also comes under digital evidence. Again, more importantly, cell phone messages. This was the earliest form of digital evidence, which was used in some of the criminal cases. Even I was maybe involved as an expert in some of those cases, and maybe they were interesting cases wherein the prosecution was trying to showcase that okay, certain messages were sent and maybe they were used as evidence in court of law, wherein the defense lawyer, they were trying to prove that even the messages could be spoofed and maybe they should not be considered as a real evidence. So there are like a lot of interesting scenarios surrounding this, wherein we need to be very, very careful in a way what is presented as a digital evidence and maybe what could be considered as a digital evidence when we go for maybe relevant criminal cases as per Evidence Act in India. So we need to be very careful in terms of handling all these digital evidences. So we'll come to that in a short while. In a way, what's the best way to handle such digital evidence, and what methodology you should follow, what process you should follow, so that the same could be accepted in court of law. Again, it's very, very important before we get into mobile forensics to understand digital forensics, which is the important concept based on which we have the extension field, which is coming into called as mobile forensics. So in simplest term, digital forensics or digital forensic science, as we call it, is a branch of a forensic science which is used in solving crime. It basically focuses on recovery and investigation of material related to any cybercrime which is going to be found on relevant digital devices. So if you look at originally how this term was coined, right, that was used synonymously for words like computer forensics. Now we also interchangeably used it as another term called as cyber forensics, and I can go on. So basically what we do in digital forensics is we try to identify or solve cyber crimes, and for that we use variety of tools and techniques so that we could recover, preserve, and examine digital evidence which can be stored or transmitted using relevant digital devices. So as you can see on the screen, I'm showing some of the devices which are very, very old, maybe almost 20 years old, which includes floppy drive, maybe CD disk, maybe hard drives, which were maybe magnetic in nature. Now we have solid state drives and things like that. So if you look at every digital device which is out there, that basically contains some kind of evidence. Even a lot of us might not know, even when you use a printer and you print some documents from a printer, there is ways and means using which you can find out what has been printed from that printer. And same applies to modern copiers, Xerox machines as we know it, from the famous company by name Xerox. Again, if you are using these devices for photocopying, so again, they also have a lot of information stored on those devices. So if you go to a shop outside and getting some confidential information photocopied, you can imagine they can still have a way or methodology using which they can recover all the documents what you have. So that is just one example, but I can go on. All the digital devices, including gaming consoles, your laptops, your GPS devices, right? They all contain a lot of digital evidence, and they have different significance depending upon in which use case or scenario we are trying to solve a cyber crime. Again, in terms of the definition, if I want to look at from the perspective of masses, and you don't want to become you don't want to look at the technical definition. So in the basic term, any information what we have on a digital device, it is very, very difficult to delete information on such devices. And that's where the field of digital forensics comes into picture, wherein even if you delete something, or maybe if some data is wiped out, you still have mechanism using which you can find out information from digital devices. And that's where digital forensics comes into picture. And you try to look at tools and techniques. You try to uncover such evidence from those devices using forensically sound methodologies, which needs to be acceptable in court of law. So a lot of you might be thinking why we should go for digital forensics, right? So I'm sharing a photograph on my screen. Anyone knows who this gentleman is? And maybe if you know the answer, request is you can simply type the answer in the chat window and get the bragging right. If I need to give you a clue, he's also called as Sherlock Holmes of France. So he's one of the famous criminologists, and he is also called as Sherlock Holmes of France. So in interest of time, I'll continue. And his name is Edmund Lockhart, and as I said, he's also called as Sherlock Holmes of France. So there is a very famous principle which he has coined. So what he said is, every contact by criminal leaves behind a trace, and that's where the science of criminology is based on. even if somebody is very, very smart, they'll still leave behind some kind of clue or trace using which you can still find them and maybe prosecute them for the relevant crime. And that's where digital forensics come into picture. A lot of you might be thinking that, okay, if you go and delete files, even if you do shift delete on a Windows operating system, the file is gone. But that's not the case. Even if you delete the file, there are ways and mechanisms using which that deleted file can be still found. So even if you do the deletion, the file is actually not deleted from your computer hard drive. It is only logically deleted, and there are techniques using which we call it as file carving, using which we'll be able to recreate such files and maybe find out what the deleted files were and things like that. And that's what digital forensics entails. Again, some of the old techniques involved, this is something which I used to do when I was a college student, wherein if I want to send some confidential information to my friends, which I didn't wanted my other friends to look at, right? So what I used to do is maybe I used to rename some file with another file extension. So maybe it's a Word file. I'll call it as a JPEG file by simply renaming it. And maybe if somebody is trying to open that file, they'll not find out what is inside that file, because that file will not open because it's originally of that that format. So this is another technique which is used by hackers and criminals to go for some kind of avoiding the detection. So there are techniques using which you can find out if file has been renamed and original file format is a little different. Again, a lot of us think that if I have a computer or if I have a mobile phone, if I format it, all the data is going to be deleted. Unless and until you follow a forensically sound methodology for deleting the data, even after formatting, all the data can be still recovered from all the relevant digital devices which are out there. And that's where it's important that we understand how digital forensics works, or if you are selling your computer or a mobile phone outside, my advice to all of you would be you should not be doing that, because all your personal information could be uncovered if somebody gets hands on such devices. Again, when you send a web-based email, so it's also possible to recover what email was sent from one place to the other place. I know we have some techniques using encryption and other methodologies using which the email communication is hard to recreate, but there are still methodologies using which we can find out what the communication was. Again, more importantly, this is something which most of us are not aware. When we transfer a file from one place to the other place, using certain specific techniques, we can reassemble those files as evidence. So that is another technique which is used by most of the investigators, so that if they are trying to solve a crime, they're able to look for traces using which they're able to recreate such files which were transferred in past. Again, a lot of you might be thinking, if you uninstall certain applications from your computers or maybe mobile phone, they are simply gone, right? And all the relevant data is gone. But a lot of you might be noticing, right? I'll give a very, very simple example which generally all of us come across. So you use WhatsApp, you uninstall WhatsApp and maybe reinstall it. And when you reinstall the WhatsApp next time, it asks you that you have a backup copy of what WhatsApp data available. Do you want to use it? So how WhatsApp is able to get that data is the last time when you uninstalled WhatsApp, the WhatsApp file and the data is still there. It's not completely deleted along with uninstalling the relevant application. So this is what happens in most cases whenever you install any application on your computer or a mobile phone. It is basically not deleting all the data which it should delete, and that is what causes maybe more problems for you if you're sharing your phone or maybe giving that phone to somebody else with an assumption that, okay, the data is gone. Another important aspect, which is something a lot of us are not aware, that when we use any digital device, we have a lot of volatile data. So when I say volatile data, we have two types of memories which are available on most of the devices what we use. One is called as ROM, which is a read-only memory which cannot change, and second is RAM, which is used for maybe most of the calculations when you are using your computers or mobile phone. And this is basically a volatile memory. So if you restart your computer or a mobile phone, anything which is in RAM is gone. But this volatile memory contains a lot of information which is used by investigators and at times cyber criminals, because if they are aware how to use this, they can recover basically all kind of passwords, all the files, all the data which is hanging out in RAM memory. So this is something which is very predominantly used as a techniques, and we call it as a live forensics, wherein you are looking at the volatile memory. Again, remnants from previously executed applications. So any of the old applications which are there, they also leave behind a lot of data. We feel that if you use encryption, it is going to be difficult to decrypt. So let me tell you that tools available using which most of the encryption techniques which are out there could be decrypted. It's only a matter of time, right? So this could be done for certain simple encryptions in less than few seconds to maybe a few days, or in some cases a few years, depending upon how difficult that encryption is. But we cannot say that if something is encrypted, it cannot be decrypted. There are techniques using which we are able to do this. More importantly, even criminals are getting smarter, and that's where they come up with anti-forensic techniques, wherein they're trying to hide what they're doing, or maybe as users we are trying to hide our information using privacy enhancing softwares. But in most cases, these anti-forensic techniques or privacy enhancing softwares are broken. So out of 10 use cases, they might work for 4 or 5, right? But there's still 4 or 5 use cases using which these techniques might not work, and we can still do forensic investigation and we still find out the digital evidence which is out there, or maybe any information which is useful for us. Next is, a lot of you must have watched movies, right? Maybe hacker movies, right? Wherever they are going to be caught, right? What they do is they use magnets, right? And maybe using magnets, they try to wipe up data on their hard drives. So why they do that is all these hard drives are magnetic in nature. So using magnet, we feel that, okay, the data on those magnetic drives could be lost. But in most cases, there are techniques using which we can still uncover data from such devices. Even a lot of you must have seen that people put hard drives in maybe microwave oven what they have, so that the data could be corrupted, or maybe the data what is there on the hard drives is all gone. So these are all the physical techniques, anti-forensic techniques which are used. But still, what I've seen in some cases from these devices also, we are able to uncover some evidence, if not all. So we need to be very, very careful in a way. If somebody is thinking this is a technique which we should use and it's going to be working, we are still able to find evidence from such devices. Again, one more example, which is called as media mutilation, wherein any hard drive what we have, it is burnt, or maybe a digital device, it is burnt. There are chips which are burnt. We still have some techniques which is called as hardware forensics. We're able to look for such devices, maybe mount them on some similar devices, right? Or maybe we extract the chip and put it on a similar hardware, or maybe use certain hardware forensic techniques using which we are still able to uncover evidence from there. So in summary, if I would like to say, the basic enabler for digital forensics is data is very hard to kill. And that is where the importance of digital and mobile forensics comes into picture. So it's a very, very interdisciplinary field. And what we try to do in digital forensics is we try to answer certain specific questions related to all the crimes. So when the crime happened, what the crime was, who carried out that crime, where it happened, how it happened, and more importantly, why it happened. So we try to uncover all these things during our digital forensics investigation. So in our case, when is going to be referring to the time interval at which those activities were carried out. What concerns how the crime was carried out. In a way, they used computer, they used mobile phone. We're able to find that out. Again, we try to find out who carried out the crime and where is the evidence, where the evidence is located when we carry out the digital forensics investigation, and how actually the crime was carried out, and more importantly, for prosecuting any criminal, it's very, very important to find out what the motive was, and that's why we try to use the motive, and we try to find out why that crime was carried out. So in most cases, these are all high-tech crimes. These are financial crimes. People are trying to carry out these crimes to gain money, and that's what is happening. So all these criminals and gangs are getting better and better. They are creating a cartel, underground cartel. A lot of you might have heard term called as dark net, dark web, and the different terminologies which are used interchangeably, wherein these people meet. They don't know each other. They don't know their real names. They are from all third world countries. But when they carry out crime, they form gangs and cartels, and they're able to carry out those crimes together as if they are in one room. But they are able to do those things without even knowing each other. And that is what is even worrisome for all of us. So as I said, digital forensics is a multidisciplinary field. So you need to understand at least minimum 3 areas, right? So you should understand various computer technologies, because we are trying to solve high-tech crimes which involve digital devices. Again, we should have knowledge of investigative techniques, because we need to apply a lot of hacks when we are trying to uncover this evidence. And more importantly, when we are doing this, we should understand law, because if we are able to collect the evidence, it needs to be according to the relevant law. Otherwise, whatever investigation you're doing, that's not going to be of any use. That's why we need to understand science and engineering. At the same time, we should also have art and expertise. And that's why you need to be very, very multidisciplinary in nature, so that we can solve such crimes. So we have already seen why digital forensics needs to be very, very important. As I said, most of the crimes these days have some kind of digital footprint involved, even if it is a physical crime. And these days, if you look at all the modern day crimes, whenever a person is being caught, all the relevant digital devices which are used by the person, they are confiscated and collected by the relevant investigating or law enforcement agencies. And what they try to do is they try to look at all the crime scenes wherein all the digital devices are involved, and they try to use those devices for carrying out various investigations. So if it is a cyber crime, we'll try to look at like maybe things like cyber fraud, or maybe financial fraud, or maybe things like pornography, more specifically child pornography and the relevant content. And if we find that, we are able to prosecute the relevant person according to provisions of IT Act in India, and maybe have the person get relevant punishment according to relevant acts which are out there. There are a variety of branches of digital forensics. So I have just listed few high-level branches. So as I said, computer forensics, which is the one of the most oldest areas of digital forensics, wherein we try to focus on computers, laptops, and maybe relevant devices which are out there, right? And we try to uncover evidence from them. I already talked about live forensics, where we are trying to find out evidence from the devices which are live in nature. In this case, are primary memory, RAM memory, so that we are able to collect relevant evidence. Next branch is multimedia forensics, wherein we are able to do things like text forensics, image forensics, audio forensics, video forensics. This is something which is very, very predominantly being used these days, because we live in an era of fake news, fake audio clips, fake video clips, and it's very easy to create maybe audio and video clips of anyone using certain samples which are available. And there are tools which are built using artificial intelligence and machine learning, which can be used for creating such fake images, fake audio and video clips. And that's where multimedia forensics comes into picture. Fourth area, which is very, very important, is network forensics, wherein we are able to do analysis and monitoring of computer network and the relevant traffic, and identify if any intrusion or maybe any kind of sophisticated attack has happened, and maybe hackers have tried to get into a very, very secure system, like maybe a financial system or a banking system, or maybe for that matter our power grid system and things like that, and we try to prevent such attacks from happening. And the more important topic is mobile forensics. So we'll talk about that in a while. So while mobile forensics is important, is the mobile devices are becoming very, very common. I would say, like, there are many people who use multiple mobile phones these days, right, due to several reasons. So it is becoming more and more personal device. If you look at, again, there is different use, like, okay, since we come from corporate, we use multi-factor authentication, right? So if I need to log into my network, I get a OTP on my phone, and that is where the role of a phone comes into picture, right? Again, we have IP addresses. A lot of us use Google Maps. I can go on, right? Again, in the modern day practice, phone is having a lot of medical information about us. A lot of you use fitness bands, maybe even your health monitors using the modern digital watches which are out there. So you might not have all the data, right? But the mobile phone is having all your personal information in terms of what issues you might be having. If your heart rate is not right, even the modern clocks are able to look at your ECG and other details also. Again, a lot of government and military organizations also use mobile phones, considering remote areas, wherein they send scheduled, sensitive, and secret information through these devices. And you can imagine, if such information is intercepted, or maybe such devices go in hands of our enemies, what could happen? More importantly, these devices are able to communicate wirelessly, and that gives them maybe enormous capabilities, which is far better than computers, if I would like to say. So that includes, maybe I can do browsing from my phone, I can send emails, I can send instant messages. More importantly, some of these messaging platforms are encrypted, wherein the data which is being sent from one place to the other place, right, it's difficult to find out what information was sent. And that's where people are also making use of such applications while they're trying to talk to each other. And again, e-commerce, banking, I can go on. So all in all, mobile devices are basically your digital footprint online. Basically, they represent you online, and basically you can do everything using this device. More importantly, we live in an era wherein there is a new, I would say, a new term which is coming to picture, which is called as Nomophobia, wherein people can't stay away from their mobile phones. If you try to stay away from your phone for more than 5 minutes, people get anxious. So I have seen people, when they're sleeping, the phone is next to them. When they get up, the phone is next to them, right? If you go out, the phone is with them. And without phone, people can't live. And that's where most of these phones have basically all your information in a way. When you slept, when you woke up, what locations you visited, since the GPS is there on the phone. At the same time, it also contains what apps you use, how you use them, what kind of information you post using them, and things like that. So this is becoming more like a reflection of you, and it is having all your digital footprints. And a lot of this information is being collected about you without you knowing, or without you not knowing, because unknowingly we install a lot of apps. We give a lot of permissions to those apps, and those apps are able to collect a lot of information about you. Very recently, you might have noticed last year, wherein we were having certain issues with our neighboring country, and our government of India banned a lot of apps. And one of the reasons why they banned some of those apps the reason was they're using those apps, the enemy country could collect information about the relevant users. And this is something which is happening very predominantly, wherein a lot of information could be collected when you're using one app, and it could know exactly about what other apps you use, what your bank balance is, and I can go on, what calls you make, to whom you talk, and things like that, which is very, very scary. Again, these mobile phones are becoming smaller, lighter, faster, cheaper, and they consume very less power, and at the same time their functionality is increasing day by day. So if I look at the phone in 1980, it used to be like this, but if I look at the modern phones, they are more like this. So previously we used to have many devices, as you can see here. So you used to have a video camera, you used to have a cassette player, I can go on a CD player, right? All of that is now converged into a single device, which is basically able to do all those things. And slowly it has caused death to all the other electronic gadgets which were out there. And this is what gives you like maybe a convergence of computers and maybe all the capabilities a computer can have is coming on mobile devices. And that's where it is important, right, that these devices are becoming more and more powerful, and that's what is useful as humans to all of us. But at the same time, criminals are using these devices for carrying out uh, many cyber criminal activities, or at the same time there could be certain physical crimes which are happening which could be solved using mobile forensics techniques. So we should have a lot of questions in terms of like, okay, when a mobile crime or cyber crime happens, right, how the investigation is done. So we try to ask a lot of questions regarding that, how a forensic examination should be done. So these days, if you look at any crime which is happening, or if you watch most of the criminal related soaps which come on television or movies which come on television, right, every such crime is having some kind of digital device, or more importantly a mobile phone involved. So what they do is they collect these mobile devices, and these mobile devices contain gold mine of information about the relevant user. And that's where we as investigator try to look at variety of aspects, like in a way, what calls have been made by the relevant user, what kind of apps the user is using, right, what information exchange is happening from those devices, what data is being sent and received, and things like that. That is generally is really really very very useful if you look at any forensic examination, more specifically related to a mobile device. Again, this field has a lot of challenges. So if you look at computer forensics, predominantly there are only few operating systems which are out there. If you look at the fragmentation, so many of the users use Windows operating system, or if they are not using Windows, you'll find most of them using Apple operating systems. These are mostly common users like you and me, right, and maybe enterprise users. And the third flavor is Linux. We have variety of Linux flavors which are out there, right? And people predominantly use maybe just these three operating systems if you look at computer forensics. But if I go and look at same thing for mobile devices, there are many more operating systems which are out there. This is just for representation purpose. There could be more than 200 different versions or flavors of mobile operating systems which are out there. And more importantly, if you look at the release cycles of computer operating system, maybe every 1 or 2 year you get a new version. But if you look at mobile operating system, maybe every 6 months, or worst case every year, you have a new version. And at the same time, they keep pushing for newer patches and things like that, which causes a lot of problems if you ask a forensic investigator like me. So if you have a technique which was working on previous version of mobile operating system, it will possibly not work on a new version when it comes out and things like that. Again, if you look at history of mobile forensics, this field is into practice for several years. The older days involved maybe investigation of mobile devices in the manual way, wherein you can look at the call logs, or maybe SMS or text messages on the phone itself, right? And it had its own limitations at that time. In a way, those devices were having very limited features. All the methods or tools which are available, they were very very limited at that time. But 2002 onwards, this has become more mainstream. Even if I want to see my personal history, I wrote my first paper on mobile forensics way back in 2008, which was presented at IIT Delhi. It is one of the highly cited research paper online on the topic of mobile forensics. If you search with my name and write IIT Delhi, you'll find that paper online. And that's when this field of mobile forensics become even more prominent, wherein we are able to collect, extract, and analyze data on variety of mobile devices. So that includes a physical phone, SIM card, or maybe a disk or a storage device which could be put on a mobile phone. again your GPS information. We also have these dongles or mobile modems which are still used for connecting to internet, and there are a lot of media devices, right, which are out there as in past, which were used by variety of users for storing information. So that's how this field came into prominence in last 20 years or so. If I look at the prominence of this field. So in the old days, when we were trying to look at the mobile phone evidence, basically it was categorized into three categories, and it is still done by almost all the law enforcement agencies. First is we call it as CDR, call detail records, which basically contains information about the user in terms of what calls have been made, what the location of user was, and things like that. So all the law enforcement agencies, when they know the number of the relevant criminal, they try to collect this data from the relevant provider. And this is reliable and accurate because this is a provider information which is there. But at the same time, collecting such information takes times. Maybe you need to submit the application, then they collect the details, and then they share it with you. So it generally takes time. And this is only possible to be accessed by law enforcement agencies. If you and me try to go and collect this information, we'll not get this because it is not permissible under court of law. Second example is cell site analysis, wherein if you have a suspect, the law enforcement agencies can put you on a real-time tracking, wherein they're able to find out your location either using GPS, or we have cell triangularization, using which we can also get approximate location close to few fits, and we can identify before a crime could happen and maybe track the relevant criminal. So this is something which is mostly done by law enforcement agencies, and maybe in a limited capacity as user or maybe ethical hacker. If you're trying to do this, maybe the second category is something which you can do if you have the relevant means and access to do that. And number three is which is something which is all of us can do, is we can do evidence collection from mobile devices, wherein this device, if it is available with us, we can go for immediate recovery of all the digital evidence which is out there on that device. We can maybe look at all the data. But one more important thing what we need to do here is, when you're collecting this evidence, it needs to be done in a forensically sound manner. It's very, very important that you're not altering any information. Otherwise, it'll not be accepted in court of law. And that's where you need to keep in mind that instead of you doing it yourself, unless and until you know how it needs to be done, it's better to consult the experts. Again, the data on mobile phone can be found in variety of places. So first is, as I said, read-only memory ROM, wherein you mostly have your operating system and certain data which could be non-volatile in nature. Second is you can have your SIM cards. SIM stands for subscriber identity module. A lot of you might not know SIM contain a lot of personal information which could be important from the perspective of carrying out any cyber criminal investigation. They contain information like SMS, your other personally identifiable information, right, which makes it very, very important. And all the modern SIM cards have a lot more capabilities as compared to the past SIM cards which were out there. So this diagram basically shows the data on the phones. So as I said, we can have the data on the SIM cards. We can have the data on your memory card, which is the secondary memory. And we can also have the data on the handset, right, which could be your RAM or ROM, right, in terms of where the data is getting stored. So we look for all the digital evidence at all the three places whenever we are doing any forensic investigation. So here are some examples of forensic data which can be collected from mobile phones. So more importantly, contacts, call logs, text messages, multimedia messages, all the draft messages which could be of probative value depending upon what they contain, pictures, audio files, video files, and the relevant images, all the email apps, browser history, all the application files, tasks, notes, calendars, map information, more importantly, GPS locations where the user has visited. And I think All this needs to be combined with time and date so that we can recreate some of the uh, actual crimes, how they were carried out, right? And maybe this is something which is very, very useful. So example could be if I get access to a device and I'm able to find the GPS location, and if there was a bank robbery, right, which happened, and this person's phone location from where I got the phone, and the person is called as culprit, his location and the GPS location, they match. That means the person was available at that location when that physical crime happened. And that's how you try to solve some of these crimes. If you look at some of the extraction methodology of doing mobile forensics, I would say this is an ever evolving field. So there are existing methods, new methods are being evolved day by day. But some of the common methods involve you connect your phone using a cable to your laptop or computer, which is having the mobile forensics tool, and you pair it using the cable, and then you're able to collect the evidence from that device and maybe dump it on your computer in a forensically sound manner. Again, if you don't have a cable, we also have options of Bluetooth, NFC, IR, which is the wireless way of collecting the data. So you need to first collect the phone using one of these methods to the forensic workstation and collect the data. The next method is called as a chip-off method, which is a hardware forensic technique. So as I showcased in one of the diagrams previously, you have a chip, physical chip on your mobile phone. So instead of collecting the evidence using software or tool-based approach, you remove the hardware and you mount it on a special hardware forensic toolkit. And after you mount that chip online, you're able to collect all the evidence from there. Again, using all these extraction methodologies, we are able to recover all the logical data, including the deleted information. It's very easy to do that. So I'll show a few examples in future slides. So the deleted data could include SMS, call logs, files, system files, anything which is going to be of any probative value and importance to us. So here is an example of data cache. I'm not sure how many of you heard this term. So whenever you use a mobile phone, right, and you're typing something on your keyboard, all that data is getting cached. So, and that data cache basically contains a lot of information, right? So example could be if you are connecting to Wi-Fi and if you have entered your Wi-Fi password, so that information is stored in the data cache. Your internet usage, your keyboard cache, so you must be typing your bank username and password. Any apps what you're using, for that also you're typing username and password or any other information. So that all gets stored in data cache. And there are techniques using which when the data is stored in zeros and ones, we can still find out what is the important detail which is stored in that data cache. And generally this is the technique which is used by investigators to find out the important information like passwords and other details, so that we get something which is going to be useful for us from the investigation perspective. Here is another example of Wi-Fi, wherein this data can be found out on many devices in a way, what device it was, what Wi-Fi you connected, what was the MAC address of that Wi-Fi device or the device which got connected to Wi-Fi, what is the location of that device, right, at what time it got connected, what was the type of connection and things like that. So all this information is available on mobile devices and we can easily find it out. Next example is, as you can see in this example on screen, is we can find out GPS coordinates, and maybe we can show those GPS coordinates on map. And if you're trying to solve a crime, as I told earlier in an example, if a physical crime happened or a bank robbery happened, and if the device which the user has and the GPS coordinates or GPS location which the device has, it matches with the bank robbery location at the same time. So you can easily say that, okay, the person was available when that crime happened. And we need to look at some of the other evidence to prove the user was there, and maybe we can prosecute that person using this digital evidence. Next is internet usage, in a way, what browser you have used, what site you have visited, right? At what time you have visited, how many times you have visited, and things like that. This information can be easily found. Next is keyboard cache. So again, as I told you, whenever you're using your phone, you must be typing a lot of information like your username, your passwords for your apps, your bank apps also have username and password. So using the keyboard cache, we can find out anything which is going to be containing such important information for us. Again, app usage. This is something which is very useful. So as a user, what apps you are using, what time you are using, right? So if a malicious app is used for carrying out a cyber criminal activity, you can find that from this logs, and we are able to maybe prove that the person has used an app which is malicious in nature, and at this time the app was used, and maybe the person should be prosecuted in court of law. Now, next thing is, a lot of you might be thinking that if the phone is broken, that means all the data is gone, right? Or maybe if I'm not able to start the phone once the phone is broken, right? So again, more importantly, for such devices, even the broken phone, we are able to uncover evidence, physical evidence from such devices. And for that, we use variety of physical recovery techniques, wherein we take the relevant chip off where the data is, and the same chip is mounted on a hardware workstation, and we are able to uncover the evidence. Or another simple technique is you find the same device and you remove this chip from one device and put it on the other device, and you're able to still get all the data which is there. So this is called as chip off technique, which is generally used for physical recovery. Next is we all should understand certain concepts from the perspective of cyber crimes, as well as how these attacks are happening. So there are various maybe buzzwords which are used outside. So that includes malware and spyware, right? So we should understand what the concept of malware is, what the concept of spyware is, and for what purpose they are used, right? So one of the common things, right, how we get infected using a malware or spyware is you receive a link via SMS, right? It looks like a legitimate link from your bank, or maybe you receive a WhatsApp message, right? And you click on a link which comes on a WhatsApp message, and automatically as you click on those links, some application gets installed in backdrop without your knowledge, and your phone gets infected. So it's very, very important that whenever we get any information, right, through unknown sources, we should look at clicking any links or opening even any image files. A lot of you might not be knowing, and this is something which is very common. When we use WhatsApp, by default, you have option of downloading the files, video files, as well as images on. So as an attacker, I can simply send certain special files on your WhatsApp, and without you even opening those files, your phone can be infected. And that is what some at times people try to use to maybe infect your phone through a malware or a spyware. So let's come back to this again one more time. So mobile devices could be vulnerable from the perspective of three vulnerabilities. First is interception. So in a way, if I and you are talking, right, on a communication line, so some third person is able to tap and listen into what I'm saying. So that is what is in simplest term is called as interception. So there are various ways of doing interception. So we'll come to that in a short while. Second is monitoring, wherein you try to monitor what I'm doing, how maybe what apps I'm using, where I'm visiting, right, and things like that. And third, which is very, very sophisticated and modern way, is called as command and control. So this is something which is a very, very sophisticated kind of cybercrime, and maybe a lot of the people are not aware, right, where they are getting subjected for this. And this involves things like botnets, honey nets, honey pots, right, wherein your device or your computer is infected, and somebody remote is able to control what your device should be doing without your knowledge. In fact, in most cases, your phone or your computer could be controlled remotely to carry out certain other cyber criminal activities without your knowledge. So if in future those crimes are investigated, you could be caught as a culprit for carrying out those crimes without even your knowledge. So this is a very, very sophisticated kind of attack. So I'll go back to one by one in terms of how the interception happens. So in a way, if you look at interception, it could be of three types. So first is you can do a network interception, wherein I'm talking on my cell phone, right, and using a device, a physical hardware device, you are able to listen into what I'm saying. So there are certain devices which are available using which this is possible. Second is for interception, we use certain off-air or passive techniques. This is called as bugging, wherein what you do is you put maybe some kind of microphone in my surrounding, right? And whatever I'm talking, you're able to listen into on that. You can intercept basically what I'm doing. Third is spywares, wherein application or a software without your knowledge is installed on your phone, and it basically is monitoring all your activities and sending all that information to the person who is managing it. Next is monitoring. In a way, the person is able to remotely monitor what your app usage is, right? And for that, the person needs to install malware or spyware. So this can be done using variety of techniques, wherein it could be done physically once the user has access to your device, or maybe remotely using sending you a SMS message or maybe a WhatsApp message without your knowledge. And they try to collect all your information, right? Basically, they're able to listen into what you're doing, how you're doing, everything, and they use it for their benefit. And third is command and control, wherein, as I was telling you, there is a bot which is deployed, maybe on your mobile phone or a computer, wherein they escalate the user privileges, they become admin on your device, right? And they're able to maybe make calls without your knowledge to certain premium subscriptions and things like that, right? So you get charged. So if you call to certain third world countries on certain numbers, the person who is getting called on that number, they get paid. So you'll get a huge bill, and the person who is getting calls, they're getting paid maybe in their third world country. That is something which is again a huge crime which is happening throughout the world. So if you look at malware, right, so there are a variety of ways the malware can be deployed. Most easiest way is called as social engineering technique, wherein you manipulate the user to do something what they're not supposed to. So first type of deployment is a physical deployment. So maybe the user, what they'll do is they'll try to maybe get a handle of your device, right, without your knowledge. So say suppose you go to an airport or maybe a railway station, and somehow you keep your device, right, and that person is able to access your device. So within few seconds, they're able to download something on your phone. If it is unlocked, or maybe if locked, if they know the techniques using which it could be unlocked, they can do the physical deployment on that. Another interesting technique which is used for physical deployment is a lot of us go to hospitals, banks, airports, and there are certain charging devices which are out there. So behind those charging devices, once you connect to the cables for charging, they have a laptop or a computer using which they're able to deploy the relevant malware on the mobile phone. This is something which is happening more predominantly. So you need to be very, very careful when we're utilizing such charging points. My advice to you would be you should avoid using such charging points. And second, and which is more sophisticated level of malware deployment, is social engineering, or in general term we call it as a phishing attack, wherein you'll receive an email or SMS message and you click on those links and automatically that malware will be deployed. So as I said, deployment could be done using physical access or social engineering. So for physical access, they could have a flash disk, or they could have a link to web download. Once they have the link, they'll click on that and automatically a download would happen. And third is they'll override user privileges. So they could become admin of the relevant device and could do the deployment. Next is social engineering, wherein they'll send you emails, SMS messages, or maybe you have won an award or you have won a jackpot, right? And for claiming that award, you need to click or maybe apply for something or download an app or something like that, wherein they'll try to collect information from you. Or another general method is they'll say that okay, they're calling you from your bank, or maybe they'll send you a SMS or email saying that okay, your bank password is expired and you need to maybe reset the password. So you click on a link that looks exactly like your bank website, you put your current credentials, and you end up uh, sharing your credentials with the criminals, and they'll siphon off money from your account. Next is there are a variety of malwares which are out there. So they are designed to exploit the security of the relevant devices. Another area wherein they could do is trigger data cost, wherein you need to pay for higher data, right? Or maybe premium SMS or data services. Again, these phones could act as bots, wherein we use these devices for carrying out malicious attacks. This is something which is again being used for Bitcoin mining, wherein without your knowledge, since these devices now have huge processing powers, and for doing Bitcoin mining, you require processing power. So some of these devices, without users' knowledge, are also being used for Bitcoin mining. So using malware, we are able to allow remote control of these devices. So basically, the user who is controlling these devices is able to do anything what they want. So that is what is a malware and how it could be deployed. Next category is spyware, wherein the thought process of a spyware is to collect information about the user. So you deploy spywares to compromise the user created information, or maybe modify the user information, or collect information as interception and monitoring, find out what the communication is happening, collect credentials, more importantly, two-factor authentications like OTP, password reset info, and things like that. So this is something which is very, very predominant. So you all must be thinking, right, how we should do detection of malware and spywares on our phone, right? So there are various common techniques generally which I recommend to all the users. First, I call it as a behavior analysis of your device. So if you find your phone is getting discharged more quickly as compared to in the past, that means something is wrong. Or if your phone is acting slow, right? I mean, in a way that okay, it used to work fine, but now it is acting slow. When you open an app, it takes a lot of time. Or if you open a website, it takes a lot of time. That means something is taking some of the processing power on your device. More importantly, you can look at the data usage tracking. In a way, you can look at what data is being used, by which applications it is being used. So if you're not using an application and it is using a lot of data, so that is something which is a cause of concern. So that is something again which is going to tell you if there is a malware or spyware on your phone. Again, we can look at all the different apps which are installed on our phone, and we should do identification and logging of those apps. So if you see some unusual activity with certain apps, and if they're using more data and time when they're in use, they should not be. That means something is wrong with those apps, and maybe we should uninstall those apps. And that's where we should also ensure that whenever you are installing any new apps, they should be installed from the official app stores only, right? In this case, Google Play or iTunes only, because they take a lot of precautions when they are publishing any apps. Again, it's very, very important that we deploy some content management tools. In a way, if you have a confidential information on your phone, you can lock certain folders and they can be only accessed by you, or maybe certain apps after you put the passwords. So this is something which is very, very important for corporate users. You should enforce local security policies. In a way, if you're sharing your device with some other family members on your phone, so instead of sharing your admin passwords, you should create multiple accounts and maybe give them lower privileges so that they cannot install new apps. So at times, generally what I've seen is you give your phones to your kids, and kids unknowingly install certain apps, and those apps have malware and spyware with them. And maybe without your knowledge, the phone is getting infected. And that's where you need to enforce these security policies, and you should not give them privileges to install the apps on their own. Again, you should do system file analysis. So if you see new files which are added in your system folder and you see something unusual there, then that is something again we may need to look at as a sign for being infected as a malware or spyware. There are a variety of challenges as information security practitioners or forensic investigators. So if you look at some of the challenges, maybe more importantly due to pandemic, all the users these days are doing work from home, right? And they're able to bring their own laptop or maybe mobile phone that they're using for their official purposes. Again, we have different variety of operating systems, different tools which are out there for carrying out such forensic investigation. So that makes this a very, very complicated field. It's not that, okay, if you know iOS forensics, you'll be an expert in Android forensics also. Both of them are very, very unique, and you need to apply different techniques for both the operating systems. Again, there is no single detection methodology. In a way, if something works on one operating system or one device, it is going to work on in the same way on the other device. Again, it is very, very difficult to monitor certain things, right? In a way, if certain devices are not part of your local area network or maybe office network, you can only look at those devices which are in your network. If certain devices which are not in your network, then it becomes very, very difficult to monitor or maybe look for issues with those devices. Again, in most cases, we don't have any alert functionality on mobile devices. So if you install an app, unless and until you have an antivirus which is able to tell you, right, if some app or some phone is infected with some kind of malware or spyware, right, you don't generally see any kind of alerts coming in. Again, in terms of going in for expert advice, my advice would be don't go for maybe people who call themselves as experts, but they are not. Try to look for real experts. Don't go to maybe shops like what you see in the photo, right, wherein they call themselves as an expert for your data recovery and things like that. They may cause you more harm as compared to doing good. And we should always consult experts in terms of when we are talking about mobile forensics or when you think you are under some kind of cyber criminal activity. So some solutions. So in a way, some of these things which I have already told in terms of defense strategy. As a mobile phone user, we should always review our user privileges. Whenever we use any app, we can give the app certain permissions when we're using those permissions. If we're not using those permissions, you should disable those permissions by default. We should only install the apps from trusted app sources like Play Store and iTunes, and we need to be very, very careful to read the user comments, right, and look at the security patches and maybe keep updating all our apps. Again, it's very important we maintain physical security of our device. As you can see in the photo, right, assume your device is behind a lock and chain, and you should not give the access to off your phone to any unknown person or even known person if you think they could misuse that. As I already said, we should review the data usage. If we see something unusual there, that means our phone is infected. A lot of people, for saving some cost on the devices, go for concepts like rooting and jailbreaking to save on cost, wherein the devices could be provider locked, and maybe they do rooting or jailbreaking of such devices so that they can use it for a lower cost. That is not usually recommended because those devices are mostly compromised. Again, we should look for regular update of mobile software, which includes operating system, app updates from time to time, right? This is very, very important. If you don't do this, you could be subjected to something called a 0-day or 0-hour or 0-second attack, right? If you have not patched your vulnerability yourself. And more importantly, we should install latest antivirus software and keep it updated all the time from the perspective of virus signatures. So if I need to highlight it very importantly, we need to remember that our cell phone is a device which contains a lot of personal information. So we need to keep it safe and secure. Again, there are two types of extraction methodology when we go for mobile forensics investigations. One is called as logical, wherein you have permission, you have a warrant, right, and you can maybe collect the data logically. And second is physical, which is hex dump, wherein we are able to get an image copy of the complete device, and then we can do investigation on that. Here are some examples of how logical analysis can be done, and maybe what are the different techniques which are used for that. And here is an example of physical analysis wherein we are getting the hex dump and we need to look at gigabytes of data. And it's a very, very complex technique. So this pyramid basically shows the physical analysis is very, very complex. At the same time, the equipment cost is very high. The manual examination is less complex and there is no equipment involved. But if you look at logical analysis, it is less complex and the equipment cost is also less. So if you look at comparison of logical analysis and physical analysis, in logical analysis, we might not be able to extract all the information because there could be certain hardware limitations. But logical analysis using mobile forensic tools could be easy to perform, easy to analyze, and it could be affordable. At the same time, physical analysis, we'll be able to extract all the information, all the data, but it could be very hard to perform, very hard to analyze, and it requires very, very expensive software. So as an investigator, we need to follow something called as chain of custody. So this is the diagram which tries to show that. So once you have the device, you need to ensure that you are keeping it locked. You're doing logical and physical acquisition, and you do it in a way that it could be the evidence which is collected during this process could be used during the prosecution, and the person who is being caught here should be prosecuted in court of law. So here are some methods in a way how we should seize the mobile evidence. So in a way, we should ensure that we have the necessary equipment in place. Before we actually look at the evidence or seize the evidence, we should look at the legal authority. Otherwise, this could cause a problem to us. And again, we should look at maybe preventing any remote wipes of data. This is very, very important. And this is something which we need to always keep in mind. And ensure that in most cases, we should not turn off the phone in most cases so that the volatile data is not lost. But in some cases, if you think that, okay, there is chances of data getting remotely wiped out, or maybe people could manipulate the data, right? So you can turn off the data and remove the battery as well. So here is the complete extraction and documentation process framework, which I created as part of my PhD, right? So wherein you have an intake phase, you take the device, you do the identification of device, then you have a preparation phase wherein you prepare the methodology tools which you'll use, right, for doing the extraction. More importantly, you do isolation of the device, you ensure that the data cannot be remotely wiped, and you do use tools like Faraday cage and other techniques so that the device cannot be accessed remotely. And then you do the processing and extraction of the data. Once the data is extracted, you do verification of evidence extraction. And more importantly, you do documentation reporting and preservation of this evidence, because in a country like India, these cases run for sometimes from few months to few years, at times 10 years. So you need to be able to archive such information for future. Here are some of the evidence guides which are very, very famous. So I would highly recommend you to go to these sites. More importantly, going to NIST site, which is a standard body, National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is a US based body, and they have a lot of guidelines in a way what we should do, what we should not do. So they have a big publication on mobile evidence guide as well, right? It's called as a NIST guideline. So you can find it on their website if you search it for NIST mobile forensics guideline on Google. Here are some of the tools, commercial tools as well as free tools. So I'm not, in my personal capacity, I have used or seen most of these tools, but I cannot endorse that, okay, one tool is better than the other tool. So please take a note of these tools, and maybe my request would be most of these tools have some kind of trial period if they're commercial tools. So you can download these tools and maybe play along with these tools so that you have better knowledge of mobile forensics and you could become a mobile forensics investigator. And more importantly, I've given some free tools. They also have some good features in terms of the capabilities what they have. So I generally, in my physical sessions, I ask these questions towards the end of my session. But since this is a digital session, I'll not be able to ask these FAQs. Like in a way, these topics are already covered as part of my session. Like in a way, how to find out if my phone is bugged or not. So I covered those things, right? In a way, you can look at various patterns, right? Again, can we track if my phone is being tracked or not? So that is something again which I already talked about. In a way, you can look at the various patterns and things like that. Whether you have a spyware or a adware installed right on your phone, or maybe malware installed. So that is something we can also find out. More importantly, can we recover deleted messages or deleted data from phone? So answer is yes. We talked about how that can be done. Again, one of the questions which I guess get asked most of the times is, what is the safest phone in terms of defense against spyware? So my short answer is there is no phone called as a safe phone unless and until as a user you keep it safe. So you need to ensure the safety of the relevant device what you're using. But it's in your hand if you follow the relevant guidelines which I provided. So I would like to conclude here in interest of time. I know I have taken a lot of time to cover most of the important aspects. So mobile forensics is still an evolving field. A lot of practices are still being developed and being adopted. We have a lot of reliable and current tools which are there being used for variety of cybercrime investigations. I have already highlighted some of those tools, some of the use cases which are out there. So my request would be for all the participants to look at that. More importantly, as an investigator, based on my experience, I would highly recommend all of you that you should document what you are doing, how you are doing, right? So that could be used in court of law and maybe prosecuting the relevant person or relevant criminal. And more importantly, this is something we all need to understand. Mobile forensics is a tug of war between digital investigators and anti-forensic researchers. The person who is going to stay one step ahead is going to win the war. Again, this is a very, very complex field. So we all should keep learning. And here are some of the things which you all need to learn from the perspective of computer science so that you become a good investigator. So with that, I would like to quote our beloved ex-president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. So he said, excellence is a continuous process and not an accident. So my request to all the participants would be, whatever you do in a life, depending upon whether you are a professional or a student, always strive for excellence, believe in your vision, and try to help our country become a superpower or maybe the best country in the world by individual contributions. So with that, I would like to thank Mr. H.R. Mohan, Chair, ACM Chennai, for this opportunity. Dr. P. Sakthivel, Chair IEEE CS Madras, and Mr. P.V. Subramanian, Chair CSI Chennai, for giving this opportunity for delivering this webinar. So with that, I would like to give it back to the moderators so that I can take the relevant questions.
Thank you, Dr. Rizwan, for your excellent overview presentation. What we can say that encyclopedic presentation, right from basics of digital evidence, what is digital forensic. You have highlighted various devices which have been in use as computers and other some of the computing devices and mobile phones which are coming to vogue, and also given the basics of vulnerabilities, cyber crimes, techniques, and protection mechanism and defense strategies. And excellent presentation, I can say that. It is a matter of about 75 minutes. So much of information has been communicated to us, and definitely all our participants, they have been benefited without any doubt. I can say that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we have a few questions, and maybe we can take them one to one. And the basic question is, many of the applications they claim that end-to-end encryption is available. So does it mean the data which has been a part of that application, can it not be extracted? Or even if it is extracted, can it not be decoded?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Generally, I come across this question all the time. So one simple example is all of us use WhatsApp, right? And WhatsApp claims that whatever data is being exchanged, that is encrypted end to end. So if you're sending messages, they're encrypted. If you're making calls, they're encrypted. So simple logic of any encryption technique is whenever we apply encryption, there is some kind of mechanism which is used for doing the encryption. So if anyone knows the method or the key using which the encryption is done, the person would have the key to do the decryption also. So short answer to this question is, unless and until the person is having access to that key, you are secured and your communication is secured. But looking at the new needs, especially from the perspective of law enforcement agencies, what these companies need to do is they need to comply with local laws. And the law enforcement agencies in some cases have access to these keys using which they can decrypt some of this information. And they can still have access to the information which is being exchanged. So some companies come forward and accept this. Some companies don't come forward and accept this. And other ways wherein some of the encryption techniques which are out there, right, using some specific tools, the encryption can be broken. And it is a matter of, I said, like few minutes, few seconds to few hours or few years, depending upon how complex the encryption technique is. So short answer is anything which is encrypted could be decrypted. Only it is matter of time, right, in a way, who can do this and how they can do this. So we need to take all our precautions, right, if you're trying to send some secure information.
Okay. So does the developments in quantum computing will be a solution for this encryption?
Yes. I think there is a lot of research going on. If you have quantum computing based encryption coming into picture, right, that is going to possibly solve this because it's going to be difficult to do the decryption. As I said, it's only a matter of time and computing power what you have, right, in a way, how you can decrypt some of these things, right. But if you go to quantum computing and you'll be having access to quantum computers, this problem hopefully should be solved, wherein the encryption would become more strong, and at the same time, not possibly everyone would have access to quantum computing to do the decryption. But again, that goes back to the same premise, right? People who develop the tools, right, they might have means in some cases to apply those means and tools to do those things themselves.
Where do we draw a line between digital forensics and privacy?
That's again a very, very good question. I think short answer is, privacy is in our hand, I would say. So as a user, if you're using any digital device or using any digital service, right, you need to be very, very careful, right, in a way, what service you're using, what the privacy policies are, what kind of information they're collecting about you. If you're privy about your privacy, my advice would be you should try and stay away from these digital apps, digital devices as much as possible. And I know this is a very, very controversial statement what I'm making, but that's right now our truth. And that's where a lot of people are fighting for our privacy, and they're trying to fight with our governments or maybe working with our governments in most cases to come up with privacy laws so that our privacy can be protected, and the data what is being generated about us, we know what is being collected and things like that. So privacy and forensics go hand in hand. Most of these companies, the information what they collect about you, so example could be when we use Facebook, they're able to collect my location information from where I have done my post. If I'm taking a photo, right, using the Facebook app or uploading a photo, right, they're able to find out where the photo is taken and things like that. So there is a very thin line in terms of what the privacy is. At the same time, some of this information can be used for forensic purposes when we do the investigation.
Yeah, can you give some guidelines how one should become a forensic expert? Basically, after graduation, what type of courses or what higher education he needs to do?
Sure. So that's again a question generally students ask me. So good thing is in India, we have certain specialized universities running post-graduation courses specializing in forensic as well, digital forensics as well as mobile forensics and relevant practices.
There's
So
the one in Gujarat, right?
yes, Gujarat Forensic Science University is very famous. That is one. Apart from that, many IITs and triple ITs have come up with their MTech programs on cybersecurity, which contains specializations related to digital forensics, mobile forensics, and relevant areas. So my advice would be you can go for that. Second advice would be there are like a lot of private courses available wherein you get certified in certain specific tool sets from the relevant providers, as I showcased in one of the slides. And if you have those credentials, many cybercrime investigating laboratories or agencies would hire you directly based on those credentials also.
So in terms of job potential, is there any specific thing you can give highlights?
There is huge potential, I would say. Like what is happening these days slowly is all the states, they're establishing maybe C3 cells, cybercrime cells. And maybe I'll give example of state like Maharashtra. So what they're doing is at every district level, they're establishing a police station which is required to handle cyber crimes and cybercrime related cases. And that's where these cells are employing people who know digital forensics, mobile forensics, and relevant tools and techniques, so that they are self-reliant and self-sufficient. Because right now what happens is, in most cases, in most states, they refer their digital devices to a central lab, which is very, very time consuming. On an average, in India, it takes 6 months to get the feedback from such laboratories. But that is changing slowly. So there is huge scope. So I would say there is more demand and less people available in market. So I would say if we need 2 lakh people in this industry, so maybe there are like 10,000 or 20,000 people only available with relevant credentials which are out there. So huge scope. You can get part of the cybercrime labs, maybe forensic labs which are being set up at the district level and state level.
Okay. Many of us are tempted to exchange our phones when you buy a new phone. And can you give some highlights? What are the precautions we need to do in this case?
See, short answer is generally I would not advise that, okay, you should exchange your phones. Number one, I generally don't do that. I have stopped that practice, like almost I would say from the day I'm using mobile phones. And that's where the idea came to me way back in 2007, 2008. But you don't have a choice, and due to certain reasons you want to do it. So there are certain forensically sound tools available using which the data from the mobile phones can be wiped out, and you should use those tools for ensuring that all the data on your phone is getting wiped out using the anti-forensic tools, just not doing the formatting, right? And if you do that, that could be one option.
Getting back to factory setting doesn't help.
No, it doesn't help. That is generally is we are able to still recover the data. But if you don't have access to forensically sound tools, other method could be, generally all phones have mechanism of encryption. So one way you could do is to make it difficult for the relevant person. You can first apply encryption on your phone, then do the factory reset as well as formatting of your phone, then again do one more time encryption, right? And do the same thing 2 or 3 times. And you should be able to basically make it difficult unless or until someone is expert to maybe circumvent those things.
Okay. And there are cases where people say that the mobile phones are not usable when it is bricked. They call it bricked phone. Like, only the manufacturer even the manufacturer cannot do anything in this case. So how this, when the phone has been bricked, can it be used for any forensic analysis?
Yes, I would say there could be certain challenges when we come across such devices, but there are some special techniques, right? I demonstrated as well, right? In a way, we can use hardware or chip-off techniques using which we can still uncover evidence from such devices. The logical evidence extraction technologies might not work, but the physical evidence extraction technologies will work in such cases.
Okay, can you give some highlights and research opportunities in this area?
There is huge opportunity. I'll give my own example. As I said, I started way back in 2008. So I wrote my first paper, right? But if you look at now, all the devices, right, somehow they have some kind of connection with mobile phone. So even in mobile forensics, you have a variety of research opportunities. So example could be you can do hardware forensics, you could do image forensics, you could do video forensics, you could do cloud forensics, because most of these phones connect with cloud. And I can go on, right? In a way, almost there are hundreds of research problems which are still unsolved, and maybe you can take it up as your research problem and solve those problems at the same time, maybe make your career in this field.
Okay, can you give some sort of highlights on one of the famous case, Satyam Computers case, in terms of forensics? I mean, though it is little old, what type of evidence they could collect, and then how the case took place. Historical information, but it will be useful how the forensics takes place.
So personally, I mean, I don't have complete knowledge about that case, to be honest with you, Mr. Mohan. Maybe you might be referring this based on some of the web series which have come out, right? So I've personally not watched that, but in simplest term, generally what happens is whenever you carry out some kind of investigation at that scale, right? So first thing what you do is you confiscate all the digital devices. You bring them together in a single lab. You try to look at that evidence and maybe try to find out maybe a needle in a haystack and try to create a correlation, right? So that you are able to find out in a way what data was fudged, certain things which were hidden, right? And maybe certain misrepresentation happened and things like that. So you try to look through all the computer hard drives and things like that, and try to look for emails which were sent from those devices and things like that. And you try to recreate the complete sequence of maybe episodes which happened, and you try to maybe talk to the relevant person who might have done it, right? And try to have them admit that, okay, they have done certain things which they should not have been doing. That is the general process we generally follow.
See, particularly in of late, some of the foreign countries like US and other places, they started asking a lot of digital identity of individuals, like social media handles and things like that. How far they are right in terms of asking our private information?
See, I mean, when it comes to privacy, right? If you look at all these big countries, right? For them, they say this is for them, national security is more important, right? And what they say is that's why they're collecting this information before anyone could be given maybe access to coming to their own country, right? And that's why they're collecting this information. And a lot of you might not know, they have big programs using which they're able to mine information.
Yes.
And once you share,
NSA, they have that.
Right. So I'm not trying
to expose that.
Right. I'm not trying to name any agencies, right? That could be controversial on a public platform. So I'm not going to name anyone here, right? Okay. What they do, how they do, right? Because we are on a public platform. Yes. So for national security, they are able to look at, sift through your information. If they find something, anything which is controversial, right? Or maybe they also have access internally through relevant platform providers. Lot more information which you might not be aware. In fact, your location information indirectly or directly through those apps is getting stored on their servers. So even they look at what places you have been through those apps, and they're able to make a determination whether somebody is a threat to their national security or somebody is not, and that's why they're collecting that information. But it's a big security and privacy risk because we are having a lot of information about us being collected using those platforms.
How strong is our Digital Evidence Act in the IT Act 2000 and then some of it?
See, I think a lot of amendments have been made over a period of time. But I would say in most cases, we are able to cover all the relevant use cases. There could be certain still areas of improvement. That is what is still being worked out through our experts who are technical as well as legal experts, and they're trying to maybe whatever loopholes we have currently, right? They're trying to maybe close those loopholes so that we get better. So there is one consultation which is going on, right? I'm aware about that, and they're trying to make some amendments to IT Act and our Evidence Act, right? So that it becomes foolproof.
Okay, one last question: the role of artificial intelligence in cybercrime protection.
I think I have a session on that on ACM. So maybe I can do a complete session on that, how artificial intelligence can be used, right, for cybersecurity. But in short, see, artificial intelligence is a very promising field, wherein using which we are able to prevent a lot of crimes before they happen. Right now, we take more like a signature based or a reactive mechanism. So if a virus is found, right, you need to first write an antivirus signature for that, and it could be then mitigated. But wherein we use artificial intelligence and machine learning, using the relevant tools, we are still able to come up with maybe antivirus signatures on their own, right, without human involvement. That is what the beauty of such solutions is. But at the same time, this field is still maturing. So maybe my request to Mr. Mohan would be, right, I can do a complete session on this topic wherein I can do justice.
We'll be really happy to have such a session in the near future. So,
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you, Dr. Rizwan. Before we formally close, I would like to request Dr. Sakthivel to propose the vote of thanks. Dr. Sakthivel, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good evening to today's resource. Dr. Rizwan Ahmed, Office Bearers of the Computer Society of India chapter, ACM Chennai chapter, and IEEE chapter. On behalf of the Computer Society of India Chennai chapter, IEEE chapter, and ACM chapter, I'd like to thank our today's resource person, Dr. Rizwan Ahmed, ACM independent consultant for cyber security and digital and mobile forensics, for his excellent and informative lecture on mobile forensics and cyber crime investigations. It is very much essential for today's life. And thank Rizwan Ahmed for his excellent lecture. I would like to thank Mr. Mohan, Chairman of the chapter, Mr. CSA Chennai chapter, Dahila, member, Computer Society chapter, for their dedicated time for arranging this webinar. I would like to thank all the participants who all joined this Google Meet and YouTube channels. Without their participation, this webinar would not be a successful one. So, thank you. Now, over to Mr. Mohan, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sakthivel. Once again, our sincere thanks to Dr. Rizwan Ahmed.
Thank you so much
For delivering the wonderful lecture. And I also take this opportunity to thank the ASM headquarters for approving this ASM distinguished talk. And before we formally close our today's presentation, I have a few announcements about our forthcoming program. On 6th of March, we are having a book release presentation on machine learning, the practitioner's approach. On 12th, we have a program on chatbot development for enhancing customer experience. On 15th, we have a program on a launch of book as well as a talk on combating diabetes, how technology plays a role in prevention and treatment. So we have already started sending the invites for all these programs. Request the members to please make a note, register, and then attend these programs. With this, we will close our today's program. And thank you for everyone in participating and making this event wonderful, memorable event. Thank you very much and good night.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so you are joined, Panirka. Dr. Vinod is joined. Dr. Vinod?